All right. Well, it looks like just about 9 o'clock Mountain. Oops, looks like I'm also in the dark. Looks like it's just about 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock Mountain, 9 o'clock Central, uh, 10 o'clock Eastern. If we have any people joining us from that wonderful time zone, 7 o'clock Pacific. Whew, that's a little bit early for you all. But yeah, so let's get started. This is DES 370. Advanced Logo Design, and we are in our first session of our third week, and today is Tuesday, September 18th, 2017. So we are in our ninth mod. So welcome to all of our, I think we might have one student here, and also to all of our friends who are joining us, our compatriots who are joining us via video. Sorry you can't be here in person, but completely understandable since time zones, schedules, life situations themselves tend to get in the way. So no worries. Glad you can join us via video. And know that even though you are not here in person, so to speak, participating as the video is being recorded, know that you are still part of our community, you are still part of our class, and we will try to make you feel as included, as welcome as possible. So let's, I guess, jump into things. Okay, so I'm going to actually, I guess we could just do a little housekeeping with the camera on. So a couple housekeeping things. First off, probably most important, we are officially past the midpoint of this course. So as you all know, since you're in a 300 level course, weeks 1 and 2, you kind of, woo, so exciting, this is new. Oh, week 1 probably, so exciting, this is new. Week 2, kind of, okay, this is working and I'm getting into a schedule and whatever. Week 3, there tends to be like a little dip. I tend to see like, oh my gosh, it's week 3, there's so much. And then week 4, it's like, yay, finish on a high note. So we are currently in the spot, I feel like, where we kind of dip just a little bit, or at least I do as a, I do as a human. And I've seen a lot of students do it as well. So if you are kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so much, like I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm getting overwhelmed, like there's a lot happening, it's halfway through the class and I thought I would have everything in and I don't, or whatever, just know that I'm here for you. We are all here for you. And if you have work you haven't turned in yet, so if you haven't done an assignment, if you haven't done an assessment, if you haven't done a discussion, whatever, know that I am more than happy to accept late work. So if you can get it in, that would be fabulous. And it'd be a really good thing for your grade in the very short term. And then in the long term, it would be very good for your portfolio. So everything that we are doing in this course has a pretty direct kind of match to things that you could put into your portfolio, things that could help you get a job or several jobs in a kind of freelance contract capacity later on in the not too distant future when you're finished with the program. So even if you're like, well, I don't know, should I do it? Is it worth it? Like I'm getting whatever right now, I think I'll pass. Start to stop thinking so much grade-wise, and really think like, what do I want to carry with me into the future when I talk about myself as a designer, when I market myself as a designer, when I kind of enter into a competitive world where there's millions of other designers. What do I want to show off my skills, and really kind of see your work in that way, because it's coming and it's exciting for a lot of reasons. But it is a competitive world out there, so you want to make sure that you have, a set of stuff that you're super proud of, and that you can really stand behind and be like, yes, this shows that I have what it takes to succeed. Like, you want to hire me, you want to pay me lots and lots of money, all that sort of stuff. So make sure you are kind of, putting that into your pieces as you are going along. You want to hire me instead of creating a logo. you know, yourself or using a like $50 logo service. Like, nope, I'm way better because I'm a designer. So you want your work to look like you're way better because you're a designer. So kind of keep that in mind. All right, so I think that was my one my one housekeeping detail. So midterm, late work, still cool, and most of all, kind of keep up the great work, keep up the spirit, because we are, in the second portion of this course, and it means that all of you are that much closer to being finished with the program and on to, kind of the real world, whatever might be next for you all. So I am going to now stop sharing and jump back into the slides. And I had a brief moment where I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not recording, but not to worry, I am, and I did. So all is well. Okay, so here is our agenda for the next little bit. So we're going to start with assignment 2 feedback. So there was lots and lots and lots of really great kind of refinements on the logos that you guys turned in week 1. So I want to share those again and, well, not share those again, but share the share the next round so that we can together kind of talk about and look at them. And I gave most of you feedback, I believe, in the rubric. And then also perhaps like attached a screenshot or something if that felt helpful. So be sure again to check the rubric for kind of focused feedback. And if you can't see it or if you can't find it, or if I did reference a screenshot and you don't see it anywhere, it's probably not you, it's probably me. So just let me know and I can always make sure to reattach it again. So we're going to talk about that. Go over that for a bit. Then we're going to go into assessment 3. If you have taken a peek at assessment 3, you will notice that it's something a little bit different than any of our assessments have been so far. Basically, it's not a quiz or a mood board, so it is a paper. And I just want to make sure that you guys kind of understand what to do for that. Kind of what I'm expecting, some good process to go through with that. So we're going to go over that. Then we're going to end with a discussion of symbols, since if you have taken a look at the assignment for this week, you will be creating a symbol inspired by your word mark that you previously created. So we're going to kind of begin extending our brand in an interesting way with a bit more of an abstract mark. So we are not going to kind of do a demo on the assignment in this session, but we will be doing that in tomorrow's session. So it's if you look at the assignment, it's very interesting because you do have to make a symbol and then you have to make sure it's interlocking. And I don't know if you guys have done that before, but it's not difficult, but it is tricky. So kind of leave it at that. So we'll kind of go over that. And if you've done it before, or if you've consulted the course media, I know there are several good videos about how to kind of make an interlock. You should have no issues, but I'm just going to go over it again too and make sure that everybody is as clear as possible on it. So symbol time. We're going to start it today. We're going to finish it in tomorrow's session. Okay. And we will just go over a couple learning objectives before we jump into feedback. First learning objective, discuss 2 communication techniques to manage client relationship during a rebrand process. This has the keyword discuss. So this will be kind of around your discussion for this week. Number 2, apply 2 advanced techniques to enable a logo to work and remain recognizable across multidimensional applications. So this is assignment for this week. And then number 3, define how the relationship between symbols and meanings are shown within a logo design case study. And this will be the assessment. So you will be defining, kind of doing some writing, and then also digging into logo design case studies, which are available in the library and the databases that are there. So discuss, apply, define should be a good week, again, of really kind of going into that deeper level of logo design and of the whole process of kind of the why behind it. So not so much the how, but the why now, because if you don't have a really strong why when you are creating a logo, especially when you are creating a logo, you can create something that's interesting, for sure, that looks visually engaging, but really, you know, may or may not have the legs to be something that can, you know, work long-term and work in kind of good and memorable ways. Okay, so shifting gears, jumping into a little bit more kind of what's going on, a little bit more of the why-ish. We are going to jump into a little bit of feedback on assignment 2. So just as a recap, in week 1 of this course, you all came up with 3 different versions, 3 different options for a logo for one of 3 chosen companies. So you were kind of trying things, testing things, seeing what you could do with the fonts, seeing what you could do with kind of arrangement, with sizing, with extra elements, that sort of thing. And then in week 2, after receiving feedback from your quote-unquote client, who was really actually me, no shocker there, who was me and, excuse me, perhaps your other classmates, since I know there was at least one of you that was in attendance, so kind of giving feedback as well. So acting on feedback from those outside sources, you were kind of refining your one direction. And then in week 2, showing it in 3 different ways. So in black and white, in grayscale, and then in color, so defining some sort of color scheme, kind of color pathways for your logo. So this is the black and white grayscale color round of things. And I would really encourage you, looks like we have 2 students who are here in class. I would encourage you, if you guys want to participate, type your comments in the chat box, things that you think are working, things that you feel like maybe could be working better, all that sort of thing. So when we enter into a process of feedback, of critique, we really want to think constructively. So, you know, it's cool, I like it because, you know, X, Y, and Z, or, you know, I don't think this is working because, have you thought about doing this? So, you know, kind of having a statement of kind of emotional reaction, but then always followed by kind of a qualifier of, and then, you know, you can do this, and that would happen. So that's, you know, practice we always want to go for when we are giving feedback, when we are critiquing, that sort of thing. So all that to say, here's our first one. We can see wag time. It's kind of a Dalmatian, a spotted animal. But yeah, I'm curious for you guys who are here. If you want to type in the chat box, what do you think of this? What do you think of this piece? Do you feel like it's working? Do you feel like it's got a good feel to it? Do you have any thoughts at all? Give a couple seconds. And if you're watching via video, even though you can't type your comments in the chat box, you can still think. So you can still kind of use your brain. What do you think of this logo? Do you feel like it's working? Do you feel like there's something that could be done to make it better? What's kind of what's your gut reaction overall? Okay, so I will say for me that I do like that there are the spots kind of brought in, but there is I'm having a little bit of an issue just with the readability with the spots. I feel like it's making WAG very difficult to read, And we know it says WAG because we've been kind of living in this, but I feel like if somebody from the outside were to look at this, they would just see the word time, just because the way the spots are working is kind of breaking down the readability. Let's see, in the chat box it says, I think it's good, but on the logo, I think would not work as well as it should. There's something that may be missing. I can't put my finger on it. Yes, that is a missing hard to read WAG. Yes, it's a little tricky. And what I know, because I've seen, kind of the progression as well as the kind of visual inspiration for this, kind of behind this logo. I totally get where you were going with it, adding the spots. And I think it would work, except I think you need much more of like a chunky, solid sans serif bold. So just a really big blocky font where the letters have enough kind of integrity themselves, just in their shape, that they can be easily identified. And then you can put the patterning in them. So there's a really good free font that I actually just used literally like last night, called Cubano, Cubano. And I think a font like that would be great with a texture in it. But this is, put this in, put this in the file for another project. Everybody can put this in the file for another project, mostly because, as we'll see, as this logo kind of progresses, I think there is a version that's working really well. But just, kind of file that away. So filling things with patterns, I think, is a fun and interesting and good idea, but it is a little tricky because you have to make sure that you're using a font that has kind of enough oomph to it, kind of enough heft to it, so that it's it can really support it. So here's version 1. Here's in grayscale, so kind of things just got converted. And then here's in color. And actually in color, it gets a little bit easier to read because the the previously white sections have turned to green. So that's kind of cool. And what I actually really think is working well with the color is that you see the pink of the tongue. I think that's kind of fun. So I'm curious, for those of you who are here in person, do you see any, does it change the experience for you to see it in color? And if so, kind of how does that change? And if you're watching via video, same thing. Does the experience change for you with color? If so, how does it change? Okay, I apologize for that. I feel like I might have just lost sound for a bit. Um, crazy Zoom. Can you guys hear me now? Perhaps? Okay, sounds good. All right, so it looks like the chat box is saying looks better in color than black and white. Yeah, so I mean, it really kind of sets the tone. Ha ha ha. Unintended pun. But yeah, it kind of sets the tone more, and it just helps define the letters. Okay, so here's color, and then we're going to see here's a one more kind of variation. And so this is without the, and I think this is the last one. Yeah, this is without the dots, and just kind of a solid working through. And so I kind of, I will say, we'll see what you guys say as well. I think actually without the dots is working best for me, mostly because it really does kind of hold together in a better way. And it feels like, yeah, it feels like you can see each of the different parts. The wag is defined fully, and yeah, it's kind of working a bit better. Yeah. Let's see. So the chat box says, yes, it does. Makes it so that I can read it. Yeah. What are you guys feeling about the color? And again, if you're watching via video, you can feel free to, think about this as well. What do you feel? How do you feel about the colors? Because this was kind of a new thing for this week, is adding in color. So we also want to make sure that we are addressing, giving feedback about that. So what do you guys feel? Okay. Not bad, but I was still messing around with color to find the best mixture. Yeah, so I think for me, what feels a little bit, just a little bit off, is the green. Mostly because the green, to me, it doesn't feel quite dog. It feels more plant. So I would say, try just I think maybe a darker shade of brown would feel kind of good, or just something that feels a little bit more kind of canine in orientation. Let's see, the pink dot under the W isn't making sense. Oh, it's a little tongue. And maybe not. No, I think it, yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. How that plays out. And actually, if this is your logo, I would kind of encourage you to show it off and see if people are reading tongue. I feel like it's so obvious, but I think probably because I was the one that said, "Hey, wouldn't it be really cool to put a tongue there?" Uh, so definitely something to think about. One thing I did want to show, and I'm just going to stop sharing for just a second, so I can pull it up as a screenshot. I think. Oh, do I have it as a screenshot? Maybe I don't. Let me just check. Oh yeah, looks like I don't have it anymore. I had a great, decided to clean off my desktop, finally, but that's okay. Always feels like you clean and get rid of things and you're like, oh, why did I do that? But anyway, the one thing I was thinking too, and I believe I did attach this as a screenshot, is that I think what would actually be kind of fun to try is taking this lower tail of the G, and instead of making it go under the wag, bringing it up here so it almost feels like kind of more of a tail, and then making this W just a little bit bigger so it kind of visually becomes like a little bit more of a head. So these can be, these are totally like little eyes for the dog. Here's the nose. And then there's a little mouth coming. So I think if you just made it just slightly larger, it could really kind of mimic more of a canine feel. And then just rotate the tail through. And I think it wouldn't be all that difficult to do if you use, if you kind of use the erase tool and kind of cut it right here, and then just built out, like I said, another kind of arc. I think it might be kind of interesting to try. So just something to think about, something to engage with. I mean, I think it's working now, but I feel like we could just do a couple tweaks and make it even better, even a bit more kind of unique. So something to consider. Okay, so we're going to clear all that and move right along. But yeah, overall, it's fun to see this progression, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. Okay, so number 2 we have steep, and this one's actually starting in color, and we'll kind of zoom in so you guys can see it a little bit closer. But yeah, so what are you guys thinking? I'll give a couple seconds. So if you're in the chat box, you can react and type. If you're watching via video, you can also kind of think like, what do I think about that? Okay, so I will say I actually really like how this has progressed. I think this is something that we didn't see, we didn't see at all last week, which is totally fine, and often how the logo design process goes, because it's yeah, it is so fluid, and you kind of have to keep on trying things until you find something that works. I think the thing that I would be a little bit careful of, and I don't know if you guys are seeing this too, is it kind of feels like it says sleep to me. And this almost, and this shape itself kind of almost feels like it could be like a bed, so like you put this is gonna look terrible, but you put your head up here, here's your body, and you're kind of like laying there. So I think you have to be a little bit careful on the design of this T. So it looks like we have a student who says, I like how the T is shaped in this. Yeah, I think the T is really good, and I think it's a nice, I like the movement, I like the feel, and I like kind of how organic it is. But I think you have to be a little careful to make sure that the top is rounded. So kind of add, just readjust that curve here. And then figure out something. I think if this edge, if you could just like sharpen it, I think that would be enough. So if instead of having that rounded corner, you had a right angle there, I think it would just read a whole lot more T, and even more it would match, on all your other letters you have these sharp angles, so you have an actual right angle on the letters, whereas on this T you suddenly have these soft corners. So I would just make the corners sharp, make the corners right angles, and I think that would help just kind of define the letter a bit more. You might also even work with it might look a little bit like a bridge or something, but excuse me, just extending the T a little bit as well. So kind of color that in to kind of just give it a little bit more presence, so it feels more solid and like a T, and so we're less likely to read it as an L. So, and the other thing that might be kind of cool is I like, and I'm just thinking about this right now, I like how this is kind of like swooping this way. Could you even do like a little dot or something? That might read like an I. I guess it's a triangle or a rectangle, but just something to kind of make it like a little bit more, I don't know, just a touch more decorative, and kind of what's there. What do you guys think? Do you feel like that would be something, or do you feel like that's like an excessive? I guess I don't really know what I think, but it feels to me like it might be kind of cool to just see a little bit more of something. Of course, now I'm thinking like, could you add little ends to all of these? Well, they'd almost be like tea bags, which might be kind of cool, if you had like a rectangle shape. I don't know. Yeah, it's something to try. See what you see what you feel. See if it feels like it enhances it, if it brings something, or if it's just, you know, kind of more visual noise that doesn't make sense. To me, it feels like it would just make this feel slightly more unique, because I love the simplicity. I love what you're doing with the T. There's a little bit of me that says it's Helvetica, and if the T is gone, it says seep or it says sleep. So we want to kind of like fancy it up just slightly so it feels a little bit more distinctive. But we don't want to take it too far because, you know, you never just want to apply decoration for the sake of decoration. But you know, what could you do? Kind of how could you work with it? So you do see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I mean, you know, just see what you think. Give it a try, and yeah, see how that might feel. So. But yeah, interesting. What are you guys thinking about the colors on this one? So in last week's session, when we were talking about color schemes and kind of how to think about how to conceptualize color schemes, the example was Google, and the example of multiple colors was Google, was eBay, and kind of this idea that if you show lots of colors, it's kind of the thinking that you do lots of things with it. So your company has, you know, diversity to it. But yeah, do you guys feel like, well, you can kind of think about this, but do you feel like colors are working here? If so, you know, why? What's the vibe on that? I will say, just putting on my input, I think that the colors are working. I feel like with the tea company, the brief itself said that, you know, they kind of bring in teas from all over. So I do like the idea that the color and the diversity is kind of a thing. So yeah, I'm cool with it. And in a lot of ways, I feel like these colors are a little bit kind of like East Indian, or you know, they have that kind of saturated brightness that feels kind of appropriate. Like they feel like they could be a little exotic, which I think is a good thing as well. So yeah, well, let's see what the other elements look like. So here's in grayscale, again, shades of gray, pretty easy. And then black and white, again, it's working well, but I think with the same tweaks that we brought up to the color, would be working even better. Okay, so moving right along, we have Brooks and Emma, and this was the one that last week we were battling that ampersand, trying to figure out where the placement is, and I think this student has nailed it, because I think, well, I was going to ask what everybody else thinks, but I'll just state my opinion first. I think the ampersand looks great where it is. It's just the right kind of amount of, move that out of the way. It's just the right amount of kind of and it seems like it's working well. So it looks like the chat box is saying awesome. Yeah, I feel like it's got a solid kind of lockup to it. So it seems to be working well. The one thing I'm a little on the fence about is that this logo, the font that you're using, has this really cool, which you guys, I probably don't even have to annotate it for you to see, but oops, I totally overshoot it, but this little like outline stroke to it where it just looks like it has a little bit of a shift, and then the logo doesn't, or the ampersand doesn't, and I'm wondering if you just need to put that on the ampersand as well to make it feel consistent, or if the ampersand can just clearly be different and that's okay. What do you guys think? Because this is something where I'm kind of a little bit back and forth, a little bit on the fence about, because I think I think it's working without it, but I would also really just love to see how it would look with it, to see if it could be a little bit more cohesive. So let's see if the chat box has anything to say to that. And I think I'm just zooming in so we can see it a little bit better. I mean, it looks like it's just a version of, it would be in this case a version of the ampersand with just a black stroke and probably no fill on it, and then just shifted slightly to the right, so that it kind of is almost like an a stroke drop shadow. So I think that might be a thing. But yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have any insights? So if you've tried that, or if you haven't tried it, I think it might be worth it just for the sake of consistency. So zoom out a bit. And then one other thing I did want to bring up, since last week was our typography fest of type and logos. I like the spacing of the word Emma. I think it's good that the two M's are kind of like linked together. I think you need to put just a touch more spacing in between the two O's. So I would just adjust the kerning. So increase the kerning just between those two O's, so that it just opens up the space a little bit, kind of gives it just a touch more breathing room. And I don't know why it feels tight to me, since like the K and the S are connected and such, the two M's. But for me, it feels like the two O's need the amount of space that it's kind of like between the O and the K. Even here, there's just a little bit of space. Here, there's a little bit of space. So I feel like if you just put like, that much space in between them, they would just feel a little bit better. So I would just, I don't know what the kerning is right now, but I would say, plus 10 to whatever it is. So if it's a 0, put it to plus 10. If it's got a current negative number, try to get it to 0, see how that looks. So you don't want to open it up too much, but you do want to open it enough just so it doesn't feel quite so kind of cramped together. So that's my one bit of feedback. But yeah, I think it's working really well. I like the colors. You might want to try like a blue or a green or something that's a little bit more of like a naturally color, just to warm it up, because it is a little stark with just the brown and the black and the kind of beige, but it's working. It's just an idea. So all right, so here we have WAG time, and this is logo in color. So yes, what are you guys thinking about this? What's the vibe? I'll stay quiet for a couple seconds. Okay, so I think, overall this one is working again in some good ways. I think this was one that had lots of capital letters and kind of keeping the keeping the sequence going. So I think that's a good thing. I like too that the W has kind of gotten that like paw print feel to it. I feel like there's a little part of me that almost sees like a bear paw print or something, because it's so big. But it could also just be a pretty large dog working in that way. I'm a little on the fence with the color on this one. So what are you guys thinking? I know we have some chat box representation. Or if you're, watching via video, do you feel like I feel like when I look at this, it feels a little on the, it's almost a little bit too kind of like peach to me. And so I kind of want it to be maybe a little bit more on the brown side of things, so just a little darker. Or, yeah, no, I think a little bit darker I would go with. Okay, so it looks like the chat box says perhaps make it darker. Yeah, it's a little too like kind of like human skin tone, and I think for me that's a little bit, it's kind of throwing me just on the look overall. Let's turn up my contrast to make sure I'm really saying the right thing. But yeah, it feels a little like that. And the other thing too I would say is I like the paw print idea on the W. You know, is it worth doing the same thing on the M? Since, you know, M and W are kind of similar. And could you even, oops, let's undo this. Could you even like extend the M down so that it becomes, you know, like a thing, so it's a little bit longer? Could you even, you know, and then same deal, extend the W up a little bit so that it becomes a bit bigger as well, and then put that, oops, then put that third dot up there. I don't know, it feels like it might just customize it slightly more, so it kind of feels a bit more like a unique mark, like you're kind of adding, kind of growing to the growing part of the letters. Let's see, possibly round the part of the me M through. Yeah, and actually here, let me clear this. So I was drawing the things, I was thinking this is kind of not. So yeah, so if we kind of just, if we kind of brought that up a little bit and then, you know, brought that, and then same deal here, you know, you can just bring this down a little bit, and then add some stuff here. And I feel like, I almost feel like we could decrease the leading between these words a little bit too. You guys feel like, I feel like this is just, it's a little bit big, and so it's causing the two words to not be quite as connected as they could be. So I almost feel like if you had wag kind of just in this, and here would be the bump out for the W, kind of in that section. So even like, so the W could even start right here. I think it would just lock the two pieces together just a bit more, so they would feel more like a connection together, as opposed to kind of two things that are so separate. So this is, and for anybody who's watching, this is where we really get into these tiny little details, because, you know, the logo itself is fine, it's working, it's effective, whatever, but being a designer, being a professional, being a person who you pay lots of money to, you don't just pay, you know, the $50 or whatever, means that you go through and you do all this kind of critical questioning. So you say like, this is working, but how could it work better? Like, this spacing is working, but if I tweaked it, would that help, or would that be not as good? So, you know, you kind of have to go back and forth, go into it and see what's there, see how it could be made better, that sort of thing. Okay, so here's the grayscale, looking good, black and white, again, good. Just, you know, think about those considerations as to what we might do. This is totally unrelated, but I get just such a mushroom shape out of that T, and it's very fun. It feels very organic to me. So I'm feeling like at some point this font for like a garden, I don't know if you guys are totally seeing this too, but for like a garden store or something would just be so cute. You had like a little, you know, couple little bump outs here, or, you know, something. So it feels, whenever I look at this font and see the T especially, it's like, oh, it's a little mushroom, but totally unrelated. All right, so here's another one, wag time. You can see that we had, this was a fairly similar version of the logo from last week, just kind of cleaned up. The font colors have been changed up slightly, so we're going with more of a vibrant orange, as well as kind of a turquoisey blue. But yeah, so what do you guys think, who are here, or if you're watching via video, what are you thinking overall about this logo? Working, color scheme, all that sort of stuff. Okay, looks like, yeah, we're getting thumbs up from the chat box. Very cool. Yeah, I think it's working really well. I like the wag in the letters. I think it's, again, it's super understated, but it does just add a little bit of whimsy to it. And it's super easy to read and engage with. And fun fact, I did hear from this student that this is a fully custom font, so created using circles and lines. So it's so cool. Like, this is 100%, the real deal of customization, starting from nothing and creating. So I think overall it's working. I like the lightness in the wag lines. This is something I'm just thinking of right now, but maybe even, I don't know if this would work or make any difference, but if like one side of the wag lines stayed this color, and like if this one went even like 20% lighter, would that add some more dimension to it? I don't know. It might, it might not, but it might look kind of cool too to have it just be subtly different. So it really does capture that like full spectrum of movement. So again, something you might think about, consider. But yeah, overall, I think it's working. Here's the grayscale and black and whites, and looks good. Okay, so moving right along, we have some wag time working. And let's actually go to color so we can see. So we can start with that. So what are you guys thinking for this one? We'll leave it. Oops, sorry, I have too many small bars I'm trying to move and condense. But yeah, what are you guys thinking about this one? I'll give you guys a couple seconds to consider. Okay, so looks like the G and the T is overlapping. Yeah, so kind of a connection point there. So I will say I think it's interesting. I'm still not completely confident that the combination of these two fonts together is really working as well as it could. I still have an inside hesitation that's saying that the time and the curls, it's just too much. And it's so different than the wag that kind of putting them together, even in a sense that they're kind of connected, is still feeling a little bit disjointed to me. And I don't know, this might just be me, but for me, I feel like it still could be maybe a change in color, like same font, change in color, change in weight. So, have a thin and a thick kind of paired together, as opposed to the two different fonts. But I'm curious for you all, what do you guys think about the two fonts? Do you feel like this pair is working? Because again, this is, it's getting to the point where it's, this could work, but it also could be that, I'm not a I'm not a fan, but it's not because it's a fundamentally wrong thing to pair, but it doesn't feel settled to me, and I think that's kind of what's hanging me up. But do you guys feel like do you feel like it's working as well, or do you feel like it could be a little bit more connected, or what are your thoughts? Kind of mull that over. And this is where design gets tricky, you know, because it is so much kind of what your own personal reaction, kind of what you think. And so it's, you know, it's always a thing to kind of test and try. And it's a little bit quiet in the chat box. That's okay. But yeah, so anyway, so if this is your piece, I know I did give you some more feedback in the rubric, and I think, you know, I think if we stick with this option, I think that's fine. I would say just try to make the wag feel slightly more connected to the time. So maybe if the wag was in brown, that might work. And then you took the stroke off of the time, so it would kind of be one seamless color. I think that that might make them, oh, no problem. um, so yeah, so I feel like that kind of, you know, might give them a bit more of a connection point. I still, I'm not completely sold on the combo, which probably you're aware of since I've said that like 5 times. So I mean, I would still consider just simplifying it slightly. You know, if you're using a fancier decorative font, kind of just keep it more streamlined in the in kind of the overall construction, and just kind of see what you might do there. But I would say at minimum, just you know, keep it or change the color so that at least the color is the consistent element through them. If you're going to go with 2 such different fonts, if you're going to go with one font, I think you can change the color in the words and it'll still feel a sense of consistency because the shape of the font itself will be similar. But you have to kind of figure out like what's going to be the similar, what's going to be the different. And right now you have like everything is the different and nothing is the similar. And so it's going to feel, yeah, so it feels disjointed as it is in its two different things. Let's see, change it to one font, change the font on the word time. Yeah, so I think it's a little iffy. So I would say just keep on kind of pushing a little. And it's, you know, there's no shame in, you know, having to take a logo through many versions. Most logos I do for clients, I do probably about 10. And at that point, I hope that I have a good one. Because you just have to keep on trying. Like there's a million different fonts and there's a million different possibilities. And as we saw, or as we're seeing, you know, everybody kind of interprets it in slightly different manner. And, you know, you guys don't have the benefit of telling me why you were doing these things, so I can't see. So it is just kind of my own reaction. So, okay, so moving right along, wag time with a little bounce on the eye. And that sort of thing. So we'll give a couple seconds. You guys can kind of look, think, and then we'll jump into talking. Okay, looks like this one works. I like the color and the design. Yeah, I think overall this one feels, yeah, like it has a really good kind of connection, and it has kind of a fun whimsy to it. And I love how the ball is kind of bouncing, bouncing through the piece. Love the 70s feel on this one. Yeah, it has kind of a good sense of that kind of movement and a little, definitely a little retro. In a lot of ways, and it feels like it's working well. So yeah, overall I feel like this one's quite nice too. It's interesting because I feel like we have kind of this like greenish, bluish, turquoisey, orange, coral, salmon kind of pairing for this logo that feels quite popular. And I will confess I love these colors together. So I'm completely a fan, but it is fun to see how everybody's kind of tracking in these ways. But yeah, overall, I feel like this is quite successful and feels like it's, you know, it's got uh, a good kind of combo, a good lock up to it, so the words feel connected and together. So yeah, I think overall working well. Okay, so here is grayscale, black and whites. I still completely see a coffee cup here, but it's okay. No reason to capitalize on that at the moment. Okay, so here is Brooks and Emma. And again, speaking of oranges and greens, turquoises, and a slight 70s feel. What are you guys feeling about this one? Okay, it looks like Chatbox is saying this feels a little retro and interesting. And I apologize. I feel like I'm about to sneeze, and I'm trying not to, but probably means at some point I will. Okay, so let's see. The B looks a little smushed. Yeah, so I think these are, I love these caps. I think these are working. But to me, they feel like they just need to be, both of them need to be kind of just extended a little bit, you know, in this direction. So it feels like for whatever reason, they got just a little squished in the translation. So I would say just go through and expand them slightly, so that they feel just a little bit more kind of airy overall. The E and the ampersand look almost identical. Yeah, they kind of do. The E just has a little flourish on it. It's like the baby. The baby E is the ampersand, which kind of gives an interesting sense of consistency. One thing I would say too, and which I did say on some feedback, is I don't think you need this oval behind it. I think it's actually, there's enough going on with the letters, and especially with these crazy, crazy cool retro capital letters, that I feel like the oval behind it is just like one more thing. And so I don't think, I don't think that that's really, you know, a necessary piece. So what do you guys feel though, as I'm chattering away? Do you feel like it needs the oval, it kind of sets it apart? Or do you feel like it's kind of enough without it? Okay, the oval feels a little distracting. Yeah, I feel like it's not I mean, it kind of takes away from the rest of it. So yeah, so I would say we don't really need the oval. And I would say also, and this is another one I did, you know, just give an example of kind of a rework, and then deleted it as I was cleaning off my desktop. So I think you should have a screenshot attached to your feedback. And if not, let me know and I can get it to you. But for me, I feel like there's enough going on here with the capital letters that I think I would actually make the whole word all orange, so it just has a sense of overall consistency to it. Because right now when I look at this, the B, the E, and the ampersand all feel so separate. So it's almost like I'm reading Rooks Ma. So the B isn't connecting through as strongly as I think it could, and as strongly as I think it should. So I think that if you did make, you know, the Rooks and Ma be orange, it would help bring a sense of consistency through the entire logo. And then you could make the ampersand a different color, because that's, you know, that's clearly a different piece to this. So if the ampersand were a different color, it would be the and, which is a separate thought anyway. So you'd have Brooks be a full, full thought, Emma be a full thought, and then the and be kind of, something that's a little different, a little unique, and kind of its own deal overall. So I feel like that that might be an interesting thing to try. And then it would open up just a little bit of breathing room with the B, with the E, so it feels just a little bit like it has kind of some more space, not quite as squished. So I think definitely something worth a try. But I will say the heroes for sure in this logo are those wild capital letters, because they really do just have a real sense of fun and kind of whimsy and retroness to them, which is pretty fun. Okay, so let's see. Here's black and white. Whew. And then here's grayscale. And you want to just make sure, not quite sure what happened here, but as I scroll through, you can see that in this iteration, everything really got squished, and it looks like the K is even a different font. So you want to make sure that you're bringing everything, the same logo, into all the different versions that you're showing, so that there's no like, well, wait, so when it goes to grayscale, it turns into a totally different font. So like, no, you don't want to even have that enter into your client's mind. So just make sure that as you are, working with these different versions, that you're just copy paste, as opposed to trying to recreate or do anything like that, because no matter how precise you are, you won't do it the same twice. And that's just because we are humans. So you want to kind of keep that in mind as well. Okay, so that kind of wraps up feedback. So like I said, if you have any questions about anything that's been said here, or, I want to fully acknowledge that you all who are not here in person, you didn't have the chance to say, I did this because of this. And, Lisa, you gave me all this feedback, but I need to stand up and say why I did it. So, if you want to clarify and just give me insight into your own process, that's great. Like, send me an email, let me know, and I can kind of help you from there. So one of the necessary evils of kind of the format of an online studio classroom is that only one of us gets to talk, and unfortunately, the one of us that gets to talk is generally me. So I want you guys to have your voices be heard too. I want to hear your thinking and that sort of thing. And so always please feel free to, reach out and share. And I'd love to see kind of what you're thinking as well. So, okay. But yeah, overall, really great work, guys. Thanks for sticking with this, and really for kind of taking this piece and putting so much care and attention into it. This is very real world. Just kind of walking through these paces, kind of staying with something for a while. It's what design is like. Oftentimes, I feel like when I'm doing logo design for a client, at the beginning, I'm like, I love this, and then after going through many different versions, different iterations, by the end, I'm like, take it away. Like, I don't need to see you again for a long time. Just because you work with something so closely and for, such a focused manner, that at some point you do kind of get sick of it. And then after you've been apart for a while, then you're like, oh, I love you again. But you need that space. Otherwise things get a little bit close. Okay, so let's jump back around, back into the slides, and just a quick bit of review, kind of the one idea I want to stick in our heads moving forward. What is a logo? You can think, what's a logo? What is this definition that we've been kind of repeating to ourselves over and over and over again? Or what are any parts of it? You might want to ask yourself, does anything rise to the surface when you think of logo. Okay, so we have our official quote-unquote definition. A logo is a word, a symbol, or a picture, or a mashup of the two. A logo is really the face of a company. So this was a word that we had our first, I think our first session, our first time together. A student had brought this up, that the logo is the face of the company, and I loved it, so I took it and also said I'm going to use that. But yeah, so just as, we have faces and, that kind of defines who we are, the logo is like the face for the company. It defines who the company is. It is kind of the easy recognizable factor of the company itself. So the logo really is the face of the company. Okay, so we are going to jump into, now that, we're going to jump into our classroom and actually take a look at the assessment for this week before we go talking about logo marks and logo types. So I'm getting in. So I'm a little bit curious as the classroom is loading. Did you all notice a slight change in the student portal and how you get into your classes this weekend? And if so, were you thrown at all? I know that we had emails and things that were going out that the student portal was being updated and it was going to look a bit different. And I was thinking, ooh, that sounds like it could be slightly disorienting. But then I also am not totally sure how you all access your courses, so I don't know if you go through the student portal or not. But if you have, hopefully you found, well, if you have and you are here, you have obviously found your way into the class, so you've not been thrown too much. But yeah, glad to make it through. I feel like another interesting thing with software and like welcome to the world of design is that periodically software and interfaces and just the look and feel of things change, and we don't even realize that they are going to change. Well, in this case, the student portal, I think we knew it was going to change, but just general stuff tends to change on us. So as designers, we have to be pretty good about just kind of going with the flow, finding things, being curious, kind of orienting ourselves. Even if things get a little shifted on us, we are much more clever than that. So, all right, so let's go to, the assessment for this week and see what's here happening. Okay, so we have define the relationship between symbols and meanings, how the relationship between symbols and meanings are shown within a logo design case study. So a little bit of background. So when you are working as a professional designer, sometimes you will be called upon to create a set of visual symbols to accompany existing text. These symbols could be used on signage, on mobile devices, or on print material. The key element of a successful symbol is that it can both visually represent an idea of object and be highly simplified in construction. In addition, symbols are often included as an additional element with the company name within logo design. In this case, the symbol must work with the written text to support the mood or focus of the company. Each element of a symbol must support a specific meaning. For example, a company that provides car tires might have a sturdy circular symbol with spokes accompanying the written name of the company. This circular symbol would be meant to represent rugged, sturdy construction of the tires themselves by visually illustrating power and strength. As we learned in the assignment this week, or in the assignment 3 this week, symbols are a visual or graphic image of an action, item, or product. Symbols are often highly abstracted, constructed out of geometric shapes, or other types of or other types of Oh, okay, I think I just lost my sound again, but I think I'm back, hopefully. Okay. So symbols are often, back at it, highly abstracted, constructed out of geometric shapes or other types of simple illustrations. The meaning of a symbol often ties back to metaphor or a literal item that describes what a company does or a company's name. For example, a gardening company might have a symbol that looks like a flower or plant or uses the color green. So basically, symbols are something that we are going to be exploring this week in both our assignment and our assessment. And we're doing this slightly backward in that this assessment references things you learned in the assignment, but we haven't really gone over the assignment yet, but it's okay. We can kind of, shift in that way. So for this assessment, you will explore and write a 300-word short essay with at least one reference in APA style, created in Word, about the relationship between symbols and meanings within a graphic design case study. You can access a case study through the ProQuest database section of the IU Library website. You can access the database under the library link on the course homepage. So assignment instructions: write your essay in Microsoft Word or some sort of word processing software. Your essay will need to answer the following questions. So what is the company name? What industry is the company part of? Who is the designer or design studio that has produced the logo? What symbol or symbols have the designers chosen to use as part of the logo or overall corporate identity of the company? Why did the designer choose these symbols, and what meaning do they feel the symbols convey? And does the symbol have a clear literal connection to the company name or what the company does, or is it more abstracted, and why? So basically, what you're going to be doing is going to the ProQuest database in the IU Library website. And if you don't want to use this, that's fine. But I would recommend you use it because I think it's easier than just finding your own through a Google search. But, if you have something that you know of and you want to do that, that's fine with me as well. It just has to be some sort of case study about a logo change. And what I mean by case study is like a write-up describing the process of a logo, kind of the process of how a design studio created it, describing the process of what the designers were thinking, who they were, that sort of thing. So that's basically a case study. Okay, so, and also basically what you need to do, what I would recommend doing is actually just select all these questions, copy them, open a Word document, paste them in the Word document, and then just go through and answer. So it's a short essay, but it doesn't have to be like an introduction paragraph and all that kind of stuff, because 300 words, that's not much. So you want to kind of, just answer the questions basically, and that should be fine. Okay, so how do you navigate, how do you make it through the IU Library website? So let's do that. So you can click here on ProQuest link, and let me just warn you, if you do this, it takes you out of the classroom page, but let's do it anyway. Okay, so it goes to the library links, and then what I would recommend you look at is the sorry, I'm just reading that at the bottom, which you don't need to read, so I don't know why I just did that, but it was too tempting. So I'd recommend that you use the ProQuest research database. So these other ones are databases that you can check out, you can look for. And actually databases are really cool. I mean, I think there's something that as designers we don't really implement, but there's a lot of cool information there that you can search and learn. But so we're just going to do ProQuest and click on it. If you want to see kind of a guide as to how to use it, you can click on ProQuest Help. But we're going to just click on ProQuest itself. And we are going to look at, so here's where you just type your keywords, and we're going to do logo design, see if that gives us anything. and then click here, full text. You don't have to click full text, but it helps because you do want a full text article, so it just thins the results. So logo design. And basically what we're looking at, or what we're looking for, is an article that's something about the logo design of a company. So anything, a company that was a redesign, a rebrand, something like that. So here's an article, Google gets a new logo drops the serifs and biggest redesign in company's history. I love that's big news, and it literally is big news, but like they drop serifs, that's it. So this is an interesting one that you could look at and read about. Arlington incorporates new logo. That's an interesting one too. Brown Deer officials lock antlers over look of civic logo. Again, this might be an interesting one. Evaluating logo design. This is kind of cool, how redesigning angular logos to be rounded shapes brand attitude, consumer brand commitment, and self-construal. So kind of cool. Identity step by step. So you just want to look for a logo, something that's about kind of a logo redesign, logo design. You could even do logo redesign. So kind of a pro tip for when you're searching ProQuest. It's all about what words you type into the search box, and you might want to, try for just try a couple different ones involving logos, design, and just kind of see what comes up. Pet Partnership Program wants help updating logo. So DoubleTree by Hilton introduces new global brand identity. The Oprah effect. Redesign. Flying Kangaroo receives an update, prepares to welcome Dreamliner. That looks really fun. Let's click on that one. So anyway, when you find something that you think looks interesting, just click on it, and you can see that it will take you to an article. And because I clicked on full text only during my search, it will show me the full text of the articles. And so then you can kind of just read through and see what's going on. And most of these articles are probably about 500 to 700 words, so they're not really that big, but so you can kind of read through. So abstract is like the summary of what the article is about. So it's good to read that, but you do have to read the full text as well so you can find information. But so let's see, abstract. It's changed only 5th time. I won't read this aloud, and I won't, read this all, since I have a feeling you're like, well, okay, I get it. But yeah, kind of cool. So they're changing the Qantas aircraft. The image of the kangaroo first appeared on the Qantas aircraft more than 80 years ago. Comes to represent the spirit of Australia. Wow. Qantas will appear on aircraft bellies, so you can tell it's the national carrier flying overhead. Okay, so you can read here. So what is it? So essentially this one is the kangaroo is going to be the symbol that's going with Qantas. So it's kind of whatever the when you're looking for the symbol, what it is, it's going to kind of be whatever the illustration, the imagery, something like that gets mentioned. So for example, the Google article, I pointed it out, that might not be such a great one because there isn't a symbol involved. It just involves taking off the serifs. So you do want to think a little bit more symbol oriented. I know that there's a really good one I found when I was kind of prepping this for Kentucky Fried Chicken, talking about Colonel Sanders and why we bring him back. So that was kind of an interesting one. Yeah, so kind of read through and see what you can find. So, we found the logo has been updated, blah, 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 aircraft tails. Redesign aims to retain the fundamental essence of the flying kangaroo, but also moves the brand forward. New brand is more streamlined. The shading behind the kangaroo gives a better sense of movement and depth. Silver band now extends from the tail to the rear of the fuselage to give a more premium feel. This is all really good stuff to learn about design, because you can see, like, this is how designers talk about the why behind what they're doing. So as a designer, you have to, you can have this like gut reaction that this is what I need to do. And that's fabulous if you're talking to other designers who get it. If you're talking to clients and you're like, yeah, I just got this gut reaction, this is what we need to do, so trust me, the clients are probably going to be like, ha ha ha, yeah, right. I trust you, but this is also my baby. So you're going to need to figure out, clever ways to describe what it is you're doing. So reading through these case studies will really just give you some insight into, how to talk about the why with your clients, and really bring up, much more of a concrete idea. Okay, so linking the heritage, all these things. Appear gradually, updating branding on aircraft. Repaint completed by 2020. New uniforms unveiled this year, roll out today. Woohoo! So that's kind of fun as well. So, look through an article. It has to be a full text. It has to talk about some sort of symbol that's incorporated into a logo. If you can't find, so one of the questions that is listed here is, if I get there, who is the designer or design studio that has produced the logo? In the Qantas redesign, it doesn't say in the article. Does it say in the article? Oh, design agency, Houston Group. Oh, okay, never mind. It says in the article. So if there's any of these questions where you're like, I can't find it, or I don't think it says it, you can just note that it doesn't, it doesn't say it in the article, and that's fine. But if you say that for multiple points, I'm not going to buy it. So, for most of these, it should say something. Especially since they do want to kind of, give their snaps to people who have done stuff. And that, I think that should be familiar. So, but yeah. And then if you're anything like me, once you read this logo, you're like, I just want to see the pictures. Like, what does this flying kangaroo look like? So I would actually encourage you, and this is not required per the assignment, but just go in and see, like, do a Google search on whatever the logo is. So let's just do it here, since now I'm curious. Qantas flying kangaroo. See if that turns into anything. It may or may not. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so this must be see what's happening. Oh, and look at this. You can see there's another article. No pause for the flying kangaroo in Qantas' latest logo redesign. Ooh, that is extremely abstracted. Wow. Celebrated Australian designer Mark Newson. Wow, there it is. So, read your case study, and then let it kind of be your start to, what else you can learn, how you can be inspired, that sort of thing. So there they are. This is the team of designers, looking very, wow, very cool. Okay, so anyway, that was a fun little search that led to some things. And I mean, really, this is how design works. This is, you find one thing, you search one thing, and then you find these ideas that are connected to it. This is creativity and inspiration, and kind of, how it all connects together. I will say I'm not, we won't look at that little video, but I don't know. I don't know if I see kangaroo in that. I feel like it's a stretch for me, but I'm also not the logo designer. I was picturing something a little bit more literal, but apparently streamlined and it has a sense of movement and depth, and a silver band extends to the fuselage, giving it a more premium feel. Yeah, could buy that, maybe. Okay. All right, so that's your assessment. And what you need to turn in then is just a Word doc of what you're putting together. So a couple tips on how you will be graded for this. Something I really want you all to be aware of is spelling and grammar. So just make sure that you are listening to the spell check features in Word, that you are spell checking. I know it's extremely easy to make spelling and grammar errors, so use the tools that you have. Paper content as well clearly answers the 6 questions outlined above. And like I said, if you have something that you just can't find the answer to, it's okay. Just note that you couldn't find the answer to. Don't skip it, because then I'll say, why don't you have the answer to that? So kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, so that's the assessment. Hopefully it should be fun though, because like we just saw with that Qantas thing, you get to kind of browse around, see what interests you, see what you're feeling like you're into at the moment, and then kind of go from there and just have some fun. Okay. All right. So that is the assessment. And if you guys have any questions, as always, feel free to let me know. And I'll be sure to kind of give you help if possible. All right, so let's jump back into the slides and do a little bit of discussion about these 2 words, which are called logotype and logomark. So when I say these 2 words, when I say logotype or when I say logomark, does that mean anything to anyone? So if you're here, does that mean something to you? If you're watching via video, does that mean anything to you? Take just a couple seconds and think, logotype, logomark. Have I heard those words before? What are those things? Okay, if you're thinking, well, I have heard at least 50% of each of those words in the word logo, and I know type and I know mark, then you would probably be correct in many ways. And also probably if you have heard these words, because I feel like these are another set of words that we kind of throw out in a lot of different ways. So basically, a logotype, since we're going to kind of start with just a couple definitions. So a logotype refers to words or the name of a business that is designed in a special way. So logotype is actually another name for wordmark. And wordmark is another name for what we've spent the last 2 weeks designing for this project. So the reason that we're suddenly bringing in this new piece of vocabulary is mostly because I want you guys to know that if you hear the word logotype referenced, especially in things like your case study or something like that this week, basically what that means is just a word mark. So there's probably about 7 ways to describe lots of things in design, and logos especially are something that get more than enough names. So just want to make sure that everybody's clear. Logotype means word mark. And it's kind of, you can keep it in mind because type and word kind of fit together. So logotype basically is a word mark. So here's a couple examples. We have Google, NASA, Coca-Cola, Disney, Skype. So the word is the main event in a logo type. So next thing that we have is a logo mark. And a logo mark is an identifying mark or symbol that doesn't contain the business name. So logo mark, a mark that is a logo, essentially. So also known as symbols, and that is kind of what we're going to be creating for our assignment this week, and which we're going to get to much more specifically in tomorrow's session. So this is kind of the intro. So logo type, the words or the name of a business designed in a special way. Logo mark, an identifying marker symbol that doesn't contain the business name. So here's a couple examples. So we have Apple, Shell, Penguin, Target, World Wildlife Federation. So these are all symbols. These are all quote unquote marks that are identifying the business but don't have the name particularly involved. So Nike swoosh, another example, Golden Arches, McDonald's. So any kind of like symbolic thing of the company. So logo marks are more abstract than their logo type brethren, as they are symbols and they don't necessarily quote unquote sit next to the brand name. So they're more abstract, which means that they are symbols. So it means that you don't look at them and immediately say the company's name. Although in some cases, like these, Target, you can, Apple, you can, Shell, you kind of can, Penguin, you can, but it's not, written out. It's more the illustration of what it might be. So more abstract than their brethren, and they don't necessarily sit next to the brand name, which means that a lot of times you can see a logo mark on its own, and it's kind of embodying the brand as opposed to being joined to the logo name or the brand name type thing. So do you need a logo mark? Do you need a symbol for your logo? And what do you guys think? Just spend a couple seconds. Like, do you feel like, these companies need these elements, or do you feel like, the words could be enough? And it's, just a couple seconds. Think about what do you feel? Okay, it looks like the chat box is saying most logos do. So most logos do need some sort of symbol. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it's actually quite helpful. And I think there was even some discussion in our first discussion of this course about a word mark and kind of just having a word mark, and how for most of you feel like a symbol is kind of optimal to have, since it's a good kind of combination, a good pairing, a good marriage of kind of written text and then some sort of illustration. So it's an interesting thing. Like, do you need it? I think the answer is maybe in lots of ways. Conveniently enough, maybe also shows up in the slides. So here's 4 kind of interesting reasons why you might want to add a logo mark, aka a symbol, to your logo type, also known as your word mark. First thing is that it enhances brand identity. So it just, it gives another piece of identifying what the brand is. And it gives a piece that is kind of a concrete visual as opposed to just a written word. So enhance brand identity. Second, helps identify the company. So again, it's a graphic to identify the company as opposed to just a word. Number 3, helps understand the company. So if it's, Brooks and Emma, just as an example, and the symbol that goes with it is like a plant or a flower or a flower pot with flowers or something like that, people would say, oh, Brooks and Emma must be a garden company. Whereas if it's Brooks and Emma and it's a picture of a coffee mug and some steam coming out of it, people could say, oh, Brooks and Emma is a coffee company. So when you have when you have a symbol that kind of accompanies your logo, it really does just help to further clarify what your company is all about. especially if it's something that's a little bit of an obscure name. So like Wag Time, that probably says a lot of what it's about. You kind of get the pet feel. But for some more kind of abstract company names, just sometimes a symbol helps, kind of define what it is that they're doing. And then finally, they overall extend the brand. So again, they just give another kind of venue, another spot for the brand to appear, and it just makes it a bit more flexible overall. So what do logo marks do? They really enhance brand identity. They identify the company. They help bring understanding to the company, and they overall extend the brand because they give you one more thing to kind of work with as you're going along. So kind of good. So do you need it? It's definitely a maybe. And it's really up to you and probably up to your client as well, if they feel like this would be a good thing. So I find that generally clients like symbols of stuff. At least my clients have always loved symbols. So I kind of always get pushed. Well, it's not a hardship, but I always get encouraged to also make a symbol for any logo that I happen to design. So, okay, so how do we make it work? Like I said, we're going to be talking about this way, way, way more in tomorrow's session, but a couple tips, and that's you make it, it relies on the symbol's uniqueness, the symbol's meaning, if the symbol is memorable, and last but not least, if the symbol is flexible. So you want unique, meaningful, memorable, and flexible for a variety of different applications. So we're going to just break down these. And that's probably how we're going to end this time together, since I see we're coming up to our 20 minutes left mark. So yeah, sounds good. Okay, so first off, uniqueness. What does that mean? So each company has its own set of values, ideas, and characteristics. Your logo mark needs to reflect the unique essence of your organization and align with its distinct personality. So basically what that means is you need to think about, ask yourself these questions. What are you all about? What makes you unique? And what are your keywords that you can kind of build from? So the reason that you want, the reason that you want to be unique is, because everybody wants to be unique. But actually the kind of practical reason is that you don't want your symbol to look a lot like somebody else's symbol, because that's going to cause people to think that your company is just like theirs, and kind of get confused about how you're related, about who you are. Are you a branch of that company? Are you whatever kind of related to the company? What's the relationship like? It tends to get kind of foggy. So you really want to to think about your uniqueness. And the other thing too is that what makes you unique is really going to be a driver for thinking about the different ideas that or the ideas of symbols that you could possibly create. So for example, for one of our companies, so let's say our Steep company, if you were thinking about answering these questions, what are you all about? Steep is all about tea. It's all about sourcing the finest teas from exotic locations around the world. So what makes you unique? Really that probably it's a worldwide reach that this tea comes from. It's from far off lands, far off places, sourced by master tea growers, kind of this is the whole backstory of what's behind the brand. And you guys that are working, admittedly, it's a little bit difficult to do in the context of a school project because you just don't have somebody to ask for all those questions. That said, because you don't have someone to ask all those questions to, you can kind of use your imaginations, make up your own answers, which actually has a pretty good sense of freedom to it in a lot of ways. So what makes you unique? And then what are your keywords? And you guys all have keywords in your client overview documents from week 1 that you can always review. So what are the keywords that really go with, you know, what the product is, who the company is, that sort of thing. So for uniqueness, it's valuable because you want your logo mark to reflect the unique essence of your organization and really align with its distinct personalities, distinct personality, which can be found through the keywords about the company. So number 2, so we have uniqueness, number 1 in a logo mark, meaning number 2. So a great logo design tells a story and connects the mission and history of the brand in some way, shape, or form. So I love this. It tells a story and connects to the mission and the history. If you do a little search on car companies, you'll find that actually a lot of car companies like Mercedes, Subaru, I think even Toyota, and I'm certainly, I'm sure some of the higher end companies as well, have these logos that admittedly are a little bit abstracted, but once you read about what the history is behind them, you realize that every element means something. Like with Subaru, it's got the 5 stars because those represent, you know, the 5 engine companies that used to be there, and the Mercedes logo, it's that the almost like a peace sign, but not quite. And that too represents, I think, like the propellers that were important in their past. So just the idea that, you know, where did this company come from, and how could you possibly build something that reflects, you know, this tie that they have been around, they have some history, that they're, you know, reputable, they withstood the test of time, all that good stuff. Now that said, if you have a new company that has 0 history, just think you get to put the logo together, and what you put together, you know, will essentially become the history. So you can think more along the lines of the mission of the company, and then, you know, years down the road, when people look back at the logo, you will have created the history, which is a pretty sweet and cool kind of deal in that way. So tells a story, connects the mission and the history of the brand in some way, shape, or form. And it can tell a story that isn't even like readily, like you don't have to understand it completely when you look at the logo. But if you look at the logo and then you do some reading, you realize how each piece of the logo actually connects to some part of the company, some part of the history, that sort of thing. Okay, so we have first, unique. Second, meaning. Third, memorable. So the whole point of any logo is to create a brand recognition that connects the customer to your company. A logo should be the entry point to your brand, while the brand itself is the whole kind of quote-unquote experience of your piece. So the logo should be the entry point. So like we said, the logo is the face. It's the recognizable part, and then it's kind of the entry, and then the brand is kind of the larger, the wider experience. So when you have something that's memorable, what that means is that it really kind of lodges into your brain, and even more, it lodges into the brains of your customers, of your consumers, of your, you know, audience itself. So you want it to really make sense, and you want it to really feel like it has a concrete connection point to the people that you need it to reach. So, you know, if it's WAG time, you know that the audience is dog lovers. And so, you know, you want to have, if you have a symbol, you want it to be something that's very dog, canine friendly, so that people feel the instant connection point to it, and so that it feels like something that's easy for them to remember. It's not, you know, something that's really obscure that has nothing to do with, you know, dogs, or that's kind of the antithesis, kind of anti-dog. So you don't want to, you know, you wouldn't want to create that kind of mixed message. So really something that connects the customer to your company, kind of overall makes sense. And then last but not least, flexible. So we have unique, meaningful, memorable, and finally flexible. And basically with flexibility, Given the changing face of technology and the increasing demands from customers, your logo design needs to be adaptable. This means it should be legible in any size and work well across all media and look good in black and white. So basically, flexibility means that you are presenting a consistent front to your audience. So no matter what media they may encounter your logo in, no matter what kind of situation, what setting, they will still understand what's going on. It will look like the same thing. They won't suddenly access your website with their cell phone and be like, wait, is this a different company? This feels so different. Everything will work and will look stable. So it's very important that you design in a way that especially can be resized, that you're not doing things that are so complex that, once you shrink them down, they become kind of blurry or fuzzy. So it really does, work in lots of applications. And in this week, when we create our symbols, we are going to be creating them with an interlock. And so we're also going to be ensuring that we could pattern out of our symbols. And that in itself is going to give us a whole other kind of realm of usability, so that we can put that on things like wallpaper, things like printed on packaging, just as kind of, just an added textural element in itself. So flexibility, again, kind of how it works across a variety of media, how it works when it shows up in a lot of different ways or a lot of different places, and just generally what happens with it, how it stays recognizable. So 4 things of creating a successful symbol. You really want to make sure that it is unique. So its uniqueness matters. So it is tied to the company, tied to you. You want to make sure that it has meaning. So it ties to the history. It tells the larger story of your company. You want to make sure that it is memorable. So it, again, sticks in people's heads. It makes sense. It has like that good, just good memorability to it. It's not too complicated. And then also that it is flexible. So it works across a variety of different platforms. Wherever it shows up, it stays the same. And even more, it also works in a variety of sizes. And you can take it and put it in different ways, use it in different parts and pieces. And it adds a sense of consistency and really just helps to kind of extend the logo overall. So unique, meaningful, memorable, and flexible. I'm gonna buzz through these. All right, so this is the magic question, and the question that we're only going to somewhat answer today, but we will really answer in practice tomorrow. And that is, how in the world do we do this? So I got four steps, 4 things that I would suggest. And this is kind of just to get you thinking. And as usual, you guys are 300 levelers. You probably have your own ideas and thoughts and process and such for this. So that's up to you as well, which I would be curious to hear what your ideas are. But anyway, we'll just go with my ideas for the moment. So how you do this, first thing, you really think about your company and you start to brainstorm ideas. So what could your, what could ideas be for your symbol? So, are you going with the paw print idea? Are you going with a dog bone idea? Like what captures dog? What captures tea? Is it a cup? Is it a mug? Is it a kettle? What captures jewelry? And that's a harder one, but is it something organic? Is it like twisty, curvy lines? What's the overall feel and idea? So just brainstorm ideas. Sit and think, like, what could this be? Next thing, check the inspiration. So we went to Instagram in week 1. I would suggest you go to Instagram again and just see, you know, what are other people doing? You know, you may think, okay, what I want to do is a teacup, and then, you know, what kind of teacup do you want to do? Is it a thin teacup? Is it chunky teacup? Does it have a saucer with it? Is it fancy? Is it more minimal? Does it feel like it's, you know, kind of created out of steam? Like, what's the idea? What's the thinking behind it? And, you know, it's great to do that in your own head and just kind of have your own your own mind as your scope. But it's even more to just kind of see, like, what are other people doing? What's out there? You know, what's happening? And kind of put those ideas too in your head, because chances are your logo mark is going to need to show up side by side with other people's. And so what's going to set yours apart? You know, if yours was on Pinterest with everybody else's, that's, you know, a T logo. What's going to make yours, you know, be the unique, memorable thing, and not be just like, you know, what everybody else is out there. So kind of check the check the competition, and see also, you know, how they can inspire and kind of push you further. And then next one, create using geometry. So it's always helpful to create a symbol using fairly clear-cut measures. So whether you know, whether those are circles, whether those are circles, triangles, rectangles, all sorts of things, you know, just see how you could put something together, see how you could kind of break things down, and create something that's perhaps a little bit more geometric in nature. And this might help you break it into something that could become like a pattern, a tileable thing, that sort of deal. And then last but not least, think simple. So because a symbol probably will show up sometimes in a very tiny spot, you want it to not be overly complicated, because if it's overly complicated, as soon as you shrink it, it doesn't tend to work very well. It just becomes kind of a blur. So you really want to think how you can simplify, how you can just scale down, so that what's showing up is really something that feels appropriate and is going to be, again, recognizable, understandable, in a variety of different settings and situations. So really simplify, simplify, simplify. And oftentimes using geometry is a good way to do that. All right, so with that, I think we are going to wrap things up for the day. So I would recommend to everybody that you do kind of think through feedback that was given for your assignment 2 logo. You know, do you agree with it? How do you change it? How could you implement it? How could you play with it? That sort of thing. And then jump into assessment 3. You never know what kind of cool things you may find and learn through reading about the case study, or what you may find in the ProQuest database. And then think about, you know, what you could bring in for your logo mark for the assignment for this week. So what sort of symbol might you create? And just start brainstorming ideas. You know, think about inspiration, think about what's out there, who's making stuff, what you like, and yeah, see what might be in your future. All right, well, as usual, thanks guys for another great first session. Let me know if you're watching the video and you have any questions about anything. I'd be more than happy to try to explain. Remember, late work, always a good idea. And otherwise, look forward to connecting with you all in our second session, which is going to be same time as usual, 1 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow. And thanks guys too for being a little bit flexible today with just a quick change I had to do because of another meeting that unfortunately was going to happen right at the middle of our time together. All right, well, take care everyone. Hope you have a great day, whatever day it might be for you. And I will, yeah, look forward to seeing you next time. All right, take care, everyone.